Do you want a dress you really love but hate the fact that it has no pockets? I don't know what it is, but most dresses and skirts don't come with pockets because for some reasons people don't think women need pockets. Or men, doesn't matter. But today I'm going to be showing you how to put in practical pockets into your dress. That way you can pocket and avoid human contact all day and night long because human contact is overrated. Or rather, if you just want to have a practical storage for small items that you're carrying about your day, I'm going to be showing you how to sew in a very concealed pocket, if I may add, and make your dress super practical. So let's get right into this. First things first, all you need for this to work is make sure your garment has a side seam. So it doesn't matter if it's pants, a dress, a skirt, just make sure it has a side seam because that's a requirement for this to work. And now all I'm doing is I'm drafting a pocket pattern. I just slanted my hand a bit. This is how it's gonna sit in my pocket, and I'm just drawing out my pattern shape using a pencil. So I left a generous seam allowance at the bottom and forgot to do so at the top. So I just had to go back in and made sure I added in the extra seam allowance at the top. Once you're done, you'll have something that looks like this, and this is basically your pocket pattern. Cut it out, and you can use this for multiple projects you want to add pockets to. It's the same concept, and you can apply this to anything, I promise you. So keep this bad boy safe in case you need to use it for future projects as well. Moving on to the fabric, I used this very stiff fabric. I wish I'd used a more soft and drapey fabric because my pocket was a bit stiff and added a bit of lumpiness to my dress, which I did not enjoy. So make sure you're using fabric that's quite soft and drapey, that way your pocket doesn't add lumpiness to your outfit. And basically all I'm doing is I'm pinning the pattern onto my fabric. My fabric is folded in twice, so I'll be cutting through 2 layers of fabric as you're about to see. I moved that pin because she was in my way and I needed to do my thing, so I moved her out of the way and cut out my pocket shape. After removing my pins, I was left with 2 pieces of fabric, as you can see, and this will form 1 pocket. So you're going to repeat the same exact thing and cut out 2 more pieces. That way you have 4 bits of fabric, which are going to make 2 pockets in the end. Once I got rid of the pattern piece, as you can see, we have 4 bits of fabric. They'll make 2 pockets, so 2 pieces for each pocket. Now moving on to the dress, wear your dress and see where your pocket should sit. Make sure it's not too high up because you don't want your pockets to look awkward. I just marked the beginning of my pocket using a pin, and I made sure this is a comfortable position. That way my hand would easily slip in and it looks like my dress actually came with pockets. Now moving on to the dress, I flipped it over inside out. That way I would work on the inside bit, and I made sure to make the seam face me, the side seam that is, because you're going to be working on the side seam this entire time. That's just the pin I marked on the outside. I went in with a bit of chalk and then took out the pin because she was no longer needed, and I just went back in and made sure that line was very visible. I then took my pocket pattern and drafted the end of my pocket. That way I knew how long my pocket would be, and I was just going to seam rip that entire side seam, just go an inch above and below your lines. That way you have a bit of wiggle room to attach your pocket and gives you space to move about. So I'm just seam ripping past the lines. I went an inch up and down, and as you can see, we have a beautiful gap, and this is where our pocket will go into. I then flipped on over the dress, that way you guys could see what I was doing, and I'm just taking the top layer of fabric, folding it in a bit, that way the right side shows a bit. You want your pocket to look nice and profesh once you're done with this, so I suggest doing this step. And after that I took my pocket piece, wrong side up, I lined up the edge with that bit of fabric, which just folded in and pinned it in place, that way I could easily sew it onto my dress. Once I was done pinning, it was time to just sew that bit, and when you flip it over, as you can see, she looks nice, she looks clean. Now moving on, I repeated the same thing on the bottom layer of the fabric. I just flipped the dress over so that you guys could see, and I did the same exact thing I did on the top layer. And as you can see, after that's done, I'm just showing you to sew along the pins, that way the pocket pieces are attached from the inside. When I moved to the sewing machine, I slanted my pins a bit because this makes sewing so much easier, and I use the zigzag stitch for this. I am in love with the zigzag stitch. I would marry the zigzag stitch. That is how serious I'm committed to the zigzag stitch, guys. So I use the zigzag stitch despite my fabric not being stretchy, but it's totally optional. You can use a straight stitch as well. And this is what that will look like after everything is nice and sewn. I repeated this onto the other side and then aligned the two bits of fabric. That way I could sew them together and make a pocket that actually fit things into it. I also pinned it together just to make sure it would align perfectly. Remember those gaps we left above and below the pocket? Make sure to also sew them down as you're sewing around your pocket. That way you don't have gaps gaping in your dress, because that's never cute. So now moving on to the sewing machine, you know the drill. I use the zigzag stitch for this again. Surprise, surprise. You can totally use a straight stitch, especially if your fabric is not stretchy. And as you can see, when I got to where I needed to change the direction of sewing, I just lifted my presser foot, turned over my fabric, and made sure to sew down what needed to be sewn down. So I just sewed away and just did my zigzag stitch. At this point, I was very content and happy. Sewing is my happy place. I really do enjoy sewing, no matter what it is. I really do get lost in it and I love it so much. But anyway, once you're done sewing, as you can see, just to change the direction of sewing again, I lifted my presser foot, then put her back down once I'd flipped over the fabric and continued sewing. Always remember to backstitch when starting and ending your sewing. That way your whole project doesn't come unraveling on you. And after you're done, you're going to have something like this, and you're basically done attaching a pocket to your dress. This is super easy, and you're going to repeat this on the other side as well, unless you want to have one pocket in your dress, in which case it's totally fine. No one's judging you. So as you can see, I can put my hand into my pocket. She's quite deep. I love a practical pocket. I really love the peekaboo fabric peeking through the dress. I think it's so cute. And after you've done both sides, you obviously will have your pockets. You can dance around. You can pocket the entire day and not have to touch your boyfriend or whoever you need to touch. It's okay, human contact is overrated, as I said before, and I really hope you guys found this tutorial practical. I think it's super easy but super handy, especially because most women's dresses, or outfits rather, do not come with pockets, and we're going to advocate for more pockets because pockets are practical. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and that I'll be catching you in my next one. Until then, go add pockets to all your outfits, and yes, that does include outfits already with pockets. Doesn't matter, the more pockets the better. See you guys next time. Bye.